$4,125. Yes, that is the average cost for each employer when they have one person leave and another person come on board. It's one of the biggest expenses that employers have. Today, we're going to explore how do we empower employees, because we know empowered employees tend not to leave. Stay tuned. Today I want to talk about three different cultures. They are cultures that we can begin to sow seeds of in our companies. And what's important about these three cultures is that if they are present, it tends to help with retention and to save some of that money I talked about at the very beginning. Stay tuned and let's explore all three. So why is empowerment important? Well, there's been a lot of research around employees and employees' attitudes and retention rates, etc. And one thing that's pretty consistent, the more that employees feel empowered, the more that they engage and the less that they move on to new work. And what does empowerment mean? Empowerment means giving a little more power over to an employee so that they have more control with what they do each and every day. Great example of this is Southwest Airlines, one of my favorite airlines that I fly on. It's pretty obvious there that employees feel empowered to give their own sense of humor to solve problems that they come up. Of course, they have the guidelines they have to follow, but yet within that you can see the unique personalities coming up. We can do that through three different cultures that we want to grow and influence. Today, let's talk about what those three are. So culture number one, what are we talking about? It is a culture which is built around mistakes. Every company has a hidden culture when it comes to mistakes. It's this message. They may not say it out loud, but we learn about it. What that company is saying is, how do we look upon mistakes? How do we treat mistakes? How do we deal with mistakes? And what we know is that if we want to empower people, then we have to create space which allows mistakes and growth. It's not just the making of the mistake, it's also what we do with the mistake and how do we use that mistake for further growth. I was recently working with a client who's part of a bank, and one of the things that they were looking at is their culture around mistakes. And they knew that customer service wasn't exactly the way that they wanted it. And so what they wanted to do was explore how could they improve their performance, how could they improve the customer experience. And one of the things that they came across was through a survey and really digging deep with the employees was that the employees felt that if they made a mistake that they shouldn't or couldn't say anything. And that's a problem. Because great company culture allows for mistakes to be made because they are learning opportunities. They're opportunities to shine light and then to map out what we would do differently. It's kind of like the feedback we talk about. It's not so much focusing on what went wrong, but it's really shedding energy on what could be done. What's the next step? So it's really important, therefore, that we sow the message to each and every employee that mistakes will happen. But it's when the mistakes happen that's critically also important, that we're able to grow and learn from them. So first culture around mistakes, and asking the question, what is my message around mistakes? Culture number two, let's talk about communication. Because every organization also has a culture around the communication that we have. And so we can say things like, we are very transparent. We want to be transparent. But the proof is in the pudding, as the saying goes. Are we really transparent? Many companies struggle around this issue. I think it's pro forma that they want to say this, but really when it comes to the lived reality, when you survey employees, what we find is growing resentment because messages were not relayed. One of the most common emotional triggers in the workplace is being left out of the loop, and you see that time and time again. Because communication processes have broken down, people are missing vital information. And what happens when people miss vital information? What happens is we make lousy decisions because decision making is based upon really great communication happening. And so therefore it's important that communication is strong, and communication also is as transparent as possible, especially if you're going to say that I want to be transparent. Now, another thing as well is about availability for communication. There was a wave a while back that every manager or leader had to say the following: I have an open door policy. And what they meant by that is, you come to me anytime my door is open. Now, frankly, that's a ridiculous statement, because you can never live up to that statement. It is impossible to have an open door policy where you are available all the time. That's not how we work. Because there are times when we are in critical meetings, there are times when we need the door shut so that we can focus our energies on some other form of thinking and not be disturbed. What I think is important is, here are times when I am available. I commit to you that I will be available during these times. That's a much better thing to say, rather than say my door is always open. Because when we say that, people say, oh, you're just saying that, you don't really mean that. Communication. What is the messaging we are giving around communication? Are we transparent? And also, are we open so that when people come to us, we are available to communicate? And the third culture, it comes when we are trying to empower employees, is this. It is a culture around delegation. Because delegation is one of the ways that we are able to empower employees. It is giving employees work, delegating them work that they are able to develop and grow. Now, delegation is an incredibly important skill set that we have to master as a leader, especially a new leader or a manager, because many of us resist opportunities to delegate. Now, it's pretty obvious. Probably the number one reason why we don't delegate is, let's face it, come on, what do you think it is? It is because we can do it quicker and better. And yes, what we've got to realize is that when it comes to delegation, delegation is not a time saver in the beginning. Delegation takes time and it takes work. However, the advantage of this is whenever we get it in place, then we have a person who feels empowered, and then we begin to feel some of the time savings and some of the benefits that come from that better motivation. And so therefore, when it comes to delegation, what's important is that we realize that delegation is not just this one-time ordeal, but really what it is, it's a circle of learning and relearning and learning and unlearning and relearning. What do I mean by that? Well, whenever we give a task to someone, of course, we present to them what we think and feel the task and how it should be done. And the person performs. Will it be performed perfectly? Normally not. And then what we try and do is we give that person some feedback and then have a conversation about the next time. And the next time that they do it, will it be perfectly done? Probably not. And this is where the circle of information and feedback comes. So often what I see when it comes to delegation is that we give up too soon, that we stop this process. And if we really want to make delegation impactful, then we have to be prepared to go through that loop quite a few times. The advantage at the end is that the employee knows that we are truly engaged with them, that we want to empower them, and that we want them to succeed. So there you have it. 3 different cultures that are incredibly important when it comes to empowering our employees. What are we saying about mistakes? What are we saying about communication? And what are we saying about delegation? The evidence is in employees want to feel empowered. Employees, if they want to commit to an organization, feel that they have to develop, that they are growing. And so therefore, empowerment is an essential tool that any leader has to master. I hope you liked the content of today. If you have, I invite you to watch the next video, which is how to expand the leadership skills of employees.